Hello, I wanted to talk about a new series that dropped on Sky One in the UK, all 10 episodes, Warrior. This is a period action drama set in San Francisco around the late 1800s. It centres around the Chinese Tong gangs, or hatchet men, and the sort of tensions between themselves in the Chinatown area and the local politicians, the mayor and government, and the Irish workers who they're in direct conflict with over jobs, because the Chinese workers will work for less money, but then the Irish workers have more pull because they're sort of proper citizens. It's based on an idea from Bruce Lee. Not sure how much of it is in line with what his original idea was, but ultimately that's one of the selling points that it comes across with. You follow this guy Assam, who comes straight off the boat in San Francisco and immediately gets into a fight. And within these first 3 minutes, I was sort of sold on the show, because you've got this sort of Peaky Blinders type costume level and character design, and that's all really good, and it's sort of somewhat flawless when it comes to like the costumes of the characters. I think programs have got that down now, but the fighting is where it could all fall down, particularly with sort of Bruce Lee's name attached to it. The action style and direction are great. The fights feel like they're actual proper fights, but then they also sort of harken back to proper kung fu movies, and you never feel that there's sort of cheap shots or camera angles being used in order to try and hide shortcomings from the stunt team or the actors. And they are action packed, and they come fast and often through the show. You don't have episodes where there's a lull and not much happening. They're all really well choreographed, and you have different fighting styles as well. I mean, I'm sure there's different kung fu styles throughout it. I'm not knowledgeable enough on different kung fu styles to be able to say which ones in particular they are, but you have sort of Irish bare knuckle boxing versus kung fu, and you just have these great multi-person, one-on-one, one-on-two fights that just really sort of set the tone for the show and keep its momentum up, just when you might be getting bored with it being bogged down talking about labour laws and workers and things like that. What's good about the show as well is that it keeps focused. It's got a few plot lines. It doesn't try and seed in too many things that are going on at once, and you're therefore able to follow it clearly and concisely, get to know the characters, understand exactly what's happening, and be satisfied with the conclusion that the show comes to. There is another series that it's been commissioned for, but ultimately, if not, you would have been happy with where it ends up, and you wouldn't feel that you were cheated or confused or needed some sort of ending explained video to have to understand what happened in it. There's a really good sort of Chinese gang fight around episode 7 or 8. There's also a very good one-on-one competition fight where the outcome isn't quite as you might expect. And there's a really good fight in the last episode as well with the Irish Labour protester, let's say. I won't call him a terrorist or a union guy, because he's not quite that, but he's sort of the workers' spokesperson in a factory, and you can see that's foreshadowing for the next series where they're going to have a good punch up. There is some swearing and funny language that they use. I don't know if this is to set the sort of Chinese people apart from the American ones, because they do this thing where at the very start of the first episode they're talking Chinese Mandarin or Cantonese, whichever it is, I'm not sure. And then after a few minutes they sort of do a sort of zoom in, spin round, so that the language changes so that the Chinese people are speaking English, and you understand that. But then when they're talking to English people, they switch back to Chinese, but it's a little trick in your head. But they use different terminology and phrases. I think he's saying "you get me" and things like that. So it sort of differentiates them further culturally from the Americans, which I thought was quite a nice touch. Initially it's jarring and there's a lot of swearing at the start, but that sort of dies down a bit after the first couple of episodes. There's a very good break in episode 5 where the two sort of main characters go off and have a Western episode, and they know it's a standalone Western episode because they even put the end at the end of the episode. And it just goes to show that with an hour of television, you can make a well-plotted, cliche-ridden Western where cinemas struggle to put that on themselves. If you wanted to have a film of it for an hour and a half or 80 minutes, they would struggle to do it, but on this show they just seem to manage it. It's a standard sort of stuck in a saloon, bad guys are coming to rob them and they have to make a stand. And you also get some Bruce Lee moves in there. He does his chest crush where he jumps up and crushes his chest. All the characters are named after characters from Bruce Lee's films. You've got Bolo, O'Hara, and there's other ones to spot in there as well, and that's a nice little touch. I think it's definitely worth watching. The music is really good as well. Whenever there's a fight, it switches to this sort of cool modern Western music, and each episode ends with a sort of rap track, which you initially would think would be jarring, but it's not. It sort of fits with the badass attitude of these people and the way the episodes are put together. But it's not littered throughout the show. It's only at the end that you get that, and only during fights that you get the fight music. So it sort of revs up the adrenaline a little bit when you're watching it. Definitely worth watching if you like martial arts. If you enjoyed Peaky Blinders or other period things like that, or Gangs of New York, again, give this a try. You just have to, tolerate the martial arts, and you never know, you might actually like it. It is violent. The bloke gets his throat ripped out, so and people are getting hacked up with different bladed weapons all the way through it, so that's something to bear in mind. Definitely not for kids, and there's a fair bit of sort of nudity in there as well, but nothing more than Game of Thrones, let's say. Warrior, high quality television that I think is probably going to get passed by a lot of people just because it's doesn't seem to be getting pushed very much over here.